Hi, welcome to another demonstration for the Unitrends Certified System Administration course. In this how-to video tutorial, we'll look at creating and managing SQL backup jobs. It's going to start once again inside of our lab, right? And we're working inside of our lab, and I've got a local appliance. It's UB running on Hyper-V. It's my local source Satori user interface. I'm going to log into that user interface as myself. All right, we're going to be scheduling backups on our local source appliance. All right, now, if you look back kind of at that module you just finished watching, one of the first things you have to do is kind of determine your backup approach, right? And once again, you've already gone through kind of the cattle, pets, and people, tier 1, tier 2, tier 3. You've organized your data, right? You've got your Excel sheet over here that has, all your database assets listed out for you that you need to make sure you're protecting and what types of strategies you're going to run across those different databases there. If you go over to the Schedules tab, you have a breakdown of each of those schedules, what types of backups they're going to run, and how you're going to schedule those backups. Right now, if you've done that pre-planning and you're, before your installation, your setup, even bringing new SQL servers on board, go through each one of your databases, categorize your assets, see which ones are going to be grouped together for recovery point objectives. Right? Determine your backup approach first. So once we determine our backup approach, we also have to kind of take into consideration, how is my SQL configured? Right? Remember, if it's SQL clustering, you have to use the agents. If it's a single SQL instance running on VMware or Hyper-V, you may just do virtual snapshots, and with VMware, you may choose to turn on application aware. Right? But in this module, we are going to talk about the agent-based application backups for SQL databases in particular. Right? So we've already gone through the configuration questions we have to make sure that we can do this on these databases and these assets. We do that kind of in the pre-planning stages when we're going through the asset list within our planning sheet, right? Within our installation sheet. You're going to plan that out. You'll know when you're looking at your assets, if it's running on VMware, you'll know, and you just won't put a schedule down for those assets listed at the particular database level. Maybe right in there that they're application aware instead of putting them on a schedule. And this is what I'm talking about here. Let me show you here. On the planning sheet, if I knew these were single server instance, and I wanted to turn on application aware on these databases because I knew they were running on this VM, I would maybe just say that these are going to be application aware and maybe put the schedule name that they're going to be application aware in. But application aware is not schedule specific, right? So you've already done this planning. These databases, we are going to go ahead and schedule across the application agent, right? We're going to show you how to do that. Before we get started on actually scheduling the backups, right? We've got our agent installed. Our Unitrends agent is installed on the SQL server, right? If you're going to use the agent-based application approach, you have to install the agent on the SQL server. So we went through first in the earlier module, managing your assets, we went through and registered the SQL server with this asset, and we pushed it out using the agent push as well too. So it's using the domain credential to push and manage that agent, and through that agent push, it detected my SQL instance and all of my SQL assets. Now remember, we also learned in asset management that there are some databases, some assets in here that you may not protect. You may have them on your list of assets and then just list them as no protection. All right, you can do that too, or just put on your list what you are going to protect. But we do have some assets we're not going to back up in here. We're only going to be backing up the master model MSDB and the customers, sales, accounts payable, and accounts receivable. Those four, right? These are our little kind of cattle type of databases, right? And then these are more of our pets. They're more critical to our organization. All right, so we're going to be scheduling in those kind of groups. Now, the agent installation process is pretty easy. Once again, if you have to install the agent manually back here, all right, this is our SQL server. If you have to install the agent manually for Windows, you don't have to go out and download it. just put in the IP address of your local source appliance, and right off the appliance, you'll see a Windows Agents folder, a share, that contains our Windows agent. So if you need to load the agent manually on a SQL server, you can't push to it for some reason, you can always browse out to this directory, and that may be why you can't push. If you can't get to this directory, the agent is just going to run from here whenever we push and update and manage the agent for you. All right, so just run that installer from here. Now, I've already done that. There isn't anything special you have to do for SQL to show up. You just push and manage that agent. Whoops, let me show you the agent running in there. The agent install will install a program group called Unitrends agent. There's a MS SQL agent here. That's a legacy agent. That's the legacy agent we reference in there for like SQL 2000 still, right? You can ignore that. But in our regular agent, our regular service that's running here, it's running our BP agent, and that detects through the SQL writers what assets you have, what databases you're running on each instance. It pools each instance as well, too. So it knows your instance names. I have one instance for SQL 2008. All right, pretty cool. All right, so now we're kind of ready to go ahead and schedule backup jobs. Right, you've got your agent on, you can see your databases, you're ready to go ahead and start scheduling. So you got a couple of ways you can do it once again. You could come over here and just start to create the backup job. I'm going to come back and show you that in just a second. That's really kind of the easiest way for all of these. But I want to show you another kind of creative way, a different way to set up a group of backups as well too. Once again, you can go to the Protect tab, and it shows you that kind of summary. We've talked about this in a lot of the other modules as well too. But remember, in all of them, I've shown you this little trick as well too. If I know I want to go down and protect a bunch of SQL assets, I may want to go down and just highlight my SQL instance name. And from here, I can choose multiple databases. So if I want to schedule backups in these three databases in a group, then I can highlight the databases I want to back up in that group, and I can click the backup group up top, or the backup button up top. It automatically highlights those assets and switches this to a SQL backup type of a job. All right, it's pretty cool. All right, so a little different way to do it. I'm going to go ahead and schedule this one this way, and then I'll do the next group the other way, through the normal jobs, and create a job from scratch. All right, so we've got our three first objects selected here. It's our master model in MSDB. Pretty simple schedules. This is going to be our auto-include new schedule, by the way. I'm going to check this so I can show you in a demo how this works. So we're going to show you this auto-include in action and what it really does in this demo, and you'll also see a little bit more of it in the SQL Restore demo as well. We're just going to go ahead and go to Next now. We're going to name this job up here. We're going to call it our agent, because it is agent-based, and it's across the SQL server, so we're going to put the name SQL in there, or some sort of identifier. We're going to do the same thing with Exchange or Oracle or SharePoint too. Right? It kind of tells somebody coming in behind me what type of schedule this is running once again. We're also going to get a little bit descriptive on what type of job we're running and maybe the recurrence a little bit. So we're going to say daily fulls. Right? Just once a day, daily fulls. That's the schedule, or the backup mode we're going to use here is just fulls only. We're going to say Monday through Friday here, so we do need to check on every day during the week. And we are going to run these daily fulls every day. Let me go to the schedule details in my Excel sheet here. We're going to run these SQL fulls every weekday at 10 p.m. All right, the customer is requesting, or I've looked at my staggering I need to do across my assets, and I'm going to go ahead and schedule this every night at 10 p.m. across these assets. I don't have any agent-based backups running at this time. I don't have any maintenance routines running at 10 o'clock. I don't have any virtual snapshots running. Right? When I protect the OS, right, to grab the full machine, it's not going to be around this same time. All right, once again, I've got the options up here to set my storage. Usually on default, you're going to leave it for internal, one big pool. That's what we recommend. Keep expanding that default storage for virtual. On physical appliance, you'll only have the internal. You can't expand or add storage. All right, you've got the option here to verify these backups as well, too. Once again, it's the inline verification. Once again, we always verify all of our backups through the VSS writers. We're going to flag any integrity issues they see and we see and pass them along to you. The inline verification is through the actual Unitrends, and it just kind of slows the backups down a little bit. So most people don't turn it on because with the VSS, once again, you're already getting a layer of integrity and verification within the backups. Now, you also really want to make sure you leave on the job results and the job's failures for these reports. That way they're included and you get these schedules in those summaries as well too. We're not doing 24 hours a day here or any kind of recurrence. It's just 24 hours a day, so I don't need to worry about setting any recurrence on the bottom half. So this schedule is ready to go ahead and save. All right, we'll go ahead and take a look at this schedule now. It creates it once again in the jobs area. I see my first agent-based SQL daily full schedule up here. I can view the details of it. It's never ran. It's going to run tonight at 10 o'clock if I wait on it. All right, if I go over here to my dashboard, once again, I can click on either one of these buttons. And if I go down to the backup section now, you'll notice that you have 3 more assets that have been set in a schedule. No backups yet for them, but they do show up in this backup section down here, letting you know there is a backup policy against it now. These have been scheduled. All right, so we're going to go back over here to jobs. We'll go ahead and start this job off. Nothing else is running in our queue. We'll take a look. There's nothing else running. I've got clearance that we can go ahead and get our first fulls across these backups. So we're going to go ahead and start that job off. You'll see once again that it flags the last run here when you kick that job off. It's still going to run tonight at 10, by the way. And you see the status flip over here to running. And then if you go to your active queue now, you've got 3 jobs in your active queue that will start go ahead and performing their backups. As we watched in the earlier module, how that backup it works. All right, it's now making contact through the agent. Right, it's going to run the SQL VSS, snapshot the database, copy the database off through the agent, back to the Unitrends appliance. These are really small databases. These don't take very long. So we'll go ahead and let these run in the background. And we'll go ahead and create our next job for our next set of assets. All right, we do that once again by just creating a job. Going here under backup job, you can change the what do you want to back up question here to SQL. That pulls down a list here. You'll see all of your SQL agents broken down first. Then you have to use this little arrow over here. It's kind of hidden. It's real light, faint white. You have to drop these arrows down and see until you see your SQL instance. Then you're going to go down this list and choose the assets that you want to put over for the job inventory settings. Once again, there is no settings or credentials for SQL databases. We don't have to worry about that. And you can only have one schedule, one job, marked as the auto-include new database. We already set our SQL daily fulls for the auto-include, so we're going to leave this off in this schedule. If you wanted your new databases that you created to automatically go to this type of schedule, where you're going to run a little bit more frequent recovery points, then you would mark this schedule as your default. I tend to err on the line of caution. Only a once-a-day full is a little bit less drastic than trying to start up running fulls and transactions every couple of hours with a brand new database. Start on the lighter side of the recovery points and move it up manually if you need to. You'll have to take them out of the other schedules and move them to the other ones. Once again, you're going to see a little bit more of this. Once we start some backups in here and do some recovery in the recovery labs, you'll start to see some of this. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and go to next here. Go ahead and give this a name at the top. Once again, I'm going to use, an agent-based SQL still because it is an agent-based SQL backup. Here I'm going to run a week full with daily diffs and 2-hour T-logs. It's a little aggressive schedule for this small of an environment, but I really just want to show you how you can customize and set it for all 3 backup types. Okay, currently today it's not all in the Satori interface, so we are going to use both interfaces here real quick, so I am going to show you how to do that. But very rarely, every once in a while, you're going to run maybe a bi-weekly, or a bi-monthly full with maybe a weekly differential and like transaction logs scattered throughout the week every 2, 4, 6 hours. Now, you can only run so many transactions before it forces you to run a differential and before you have to run another full. It promotes it to a next full. All right, so you have to kind of watch out for this. And once again, you're always going to be following Microsoft or your vendor's best practice for how your full recovery model databases should be protected. Some vendor on the back end has given you that database to run some system, he should be telling you or she should be telling you how to back that database up, right? Or that vendor should be telling you what their best practice is and what they recommend on recovery points. Follow those practices, right? Not every schedule you're going to set up needs to be set up this detailed. But I do want to show you how you get all three backup types into one backup job. Okay, we're talking about fulls, differentials, and transaction logs. Because if you'll notice on this list right here, you can only do fulls only, fulls with differentials, and fulls with transaction logs. There's not a drop down for all three backup types, because most people don't need to do it once again. You're either going to run fulls with daily differentials, or you're going to run fulls with transaction logs throughout the week. You don't need to run fulls and transaction logs usually at the same time, by the way. Right? You don't need to do it. So, in most cases, now there are some databases, because of size and configuration, you do have to run all three. So that's why, once again, I want to show you all three. Now, your best bet here is to go ahead and set it up with the most detailed schedule, which would be your fulls and transaction logs. We're going to customize this schedule first. Then we're going to use the legacy interface to add our differentials, right? We're going to use the Satori interface to add the third layer at the same time, which is going to be the differentials. All right, so we're going to start with our weekly fulls. And I'm looking at the schedule sheet once again in my planning document. And I look at that schedule backup, or the schedule details. And it's the SQL weekly full, daily diff, transaction logs. I'm going to do Friday fulls at 10 p.m. So we're going to change this to every Friday, and make sure, once again, you set your date up here to set it for that first Friday you want these to start recurring. You don't have to worry about starting here with your first full on this date and time here. Your first transaction log, your first differential, whatever you schedule, that's going to run your first full for you. So if I start these today, and I start them at 8 o'clock in the morning, I want to run these at 8 in the morning. All right? And I want to run them every 2 hours until 8 at night at least. Then I need to set this until 8 p.m. 2 hours after this, it's not going to run again, because it's only going to run here. And you can't set this to 8:01, by the way. I've tried this before. It won't let you. It'll let you set it to 59 minutes after any hour. So I'm going to set it to 8:59 because I'm only running it every 2 hours, and I want it to go until 8 p.m. I want to get one at 8 p.m. We're going to do this Monday through Friday, right? And this I'm going to set for Friday at 10 p.m. Okay, Friday at 10 p.m. starting on the 4th. Transaction log starting today. Now, it's 9:30 right now. So at 10 o'clock here, this is going to kick off my first set of fulls across these assets. We'll go ahead and save this schedule. Once again, under my job manager, you can see the new schedule here. It's never been ran. I can see the details of it and what assets are in it once again. Same thing I can do for this one I created earlier. All right, there's the new schedule. You can see the full schedule name. I like it now in the new interface or Satori here because you can see the full schedule details right from here. I can see what I'm running here. And I've got the weekly full at 10 and transaction logs so far every 2 hours, Monday through Friday. All right, now, if for some reason your vendor is telling you to run fulls, differentials, and transactions, right? If they're telling you to run all three, then you're going to want to use the legacy interface here to modify that schedule. All right, that's what we're going to show you next. So I'm going to log into the legacy interface here. Once again, this is Flash-based. You do have to use a browser that supports Flash. I'm using Chrome. You're going to log in as your own user account. And remember, in the legacy interface, you have to go to that node for the application asset here. And under the backup tab, then, you will see the schedules that you created in the Satori interface. You can modify these back here. We're going to go into the custom calendar here, and we're going to add a differential. We're going to take this differential and start it on today's date so we get one tonight. All right? And we're going to go daily every weekday at 10 p.m. I'm going to show you a little trick here. I'm just going to submit that for now, and it creates a differential, but notice there's one on Friday now. I don't need one on Friday. So I'm going to double-click that differential, and I'm just going to take Friday off now. It converts it over to weekly and checks all those for me, so I don't have to do it. Either way you want to do it. Now I've got a transaction logs that run. If you go to hourly, you can see the details. 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. every 2 hours. And if you save it, it'll convert it to the legacy format. And now you have to kind of drop down and see that every night you have a differential. And then every Friday night at 10, you have a full. Whoops. Every Friday night at 10, you have a full. Okay. One way to add in a third backup type here, full differential and transaction logs. Once again, you have to do this in the legacy interface. And make sure you make these calendar changes, then make sure you save this entire schedule, as we used to call it. Now that modifies the backup job in Satori as well. All right, if you refresh this schedule here now, you now can see that it added differential Monday through Friday at 10, and then it still shows the transaction logs every 2 hours, Monday through Friday as well. Okay, so you can add, once again, if your vendors are telling you to do all three types, you can do that through the legacy interface today. Okay, now we could wait here again till 10 o'clock. I'm going to go ahead and kick these off, so at 10 o'clock, I'll get my first set of transaction backups as well, too. Okay, now, once you see your backups clear off this list once again, those first three that we kicked off, our daily fulls, they're done. I can see the daily fulls that are here, right? And I can see their success here. I can actually see that these are actually already done as well, too. There's no way. It's running. Recent jobs. It already kicked them off when I created it. It's going to run them again now. See that? It kicked them off and ran when I started it. And those jobs were already done. And then I kicked it off again. Another set ran too. So I'm actually getting 2 sets of fulls across those databases. You can see them coming in now. All right, pretty cool. I'm not sure why it kicked the other ones off when I created the job. Probably something when I did it in Satori. Or when I did it in the legacy, excuse me. I'm not sure. I really don't care. These are small databases. They're going to run real fast. You know, obviously, if you had bigger databases, we would have saw those still in the queue, and we wouldn't have started the second set of fulls, right? But once again, you check this recent jobs here, and it shows you the jobs as they're finishing. They float over to this. You know, these will stay on here for up to the last 7 days. You can sort this. I usually like to look at started, right? And then any of these jobs in here, you can view the logs for any of these details as well, too. Remember, in other labs, we had warnings down here, and you can go in and see those warnings. If you have any warnings or direct failures, you may need to look and check the details as to why that failed or gave you an issue. All right. Once again, in your dashboard, you might see an error up here. You can click that if you have any backups that error out. All right. Now, we have ran new backups because if I click the protected over here and you filter this or sort it by bringing your trues to the top, you now see these 7 new assets in here. So my numbers should be now up to 14. All right, so once again, if you click this little refresh, if you're impatient, it'll refresh every 15 minutes or so, right? Or update every hourly by default, right? Every hour by default. So here's the time that it ran last. So 9:45, it's going to update again. If you're impatient, you don't want to wait, you can click that button, right? Run the report, and then go back to your dashboard, and now you'll see that number is updated, and our asset count is starting to flip again here now. All right. You can also run your reports and your backup history. And you can run, let's make sure we're going all the way back to get everything we got. And this is a list, once again, of all of our backups. But if you know you want to look for certain asset types, database names, maybe you've named a bunch of databases similar. here's all my main DBs. All right, there's their newest fulls. All right, pretty cool. You can also go to the Protect tab, right? Once you start running backups across your SQL instances, you can use this Protect tab to drop down and start to see your overall 7-day at a glance kind of status here. Once again, you could filter and show me only the stuff that I'm protecting. What do I have successful backups for the last 7 days? All right, now you've also got your recovery catalog in here. Right, if you do need to start restoring any of these databases, make sure you check out the SQL Restore demo and the modules. But through your catalog here, you now have these recovery points. These are my databases. Once again, you can use the filtering over here. If you've commonly named your database as something, you can use the filter over there to go ahead and filter those out. All right, now, if I want to kick that job off again, let's go ahead over here. We're going to go to Job Manager. We're going to take this agent-based SQL transaction log schedule here, and we're going to go ahead and run that again now. That should kick off my next set of transaction logs against that. So I can show you another catalog type. These won't run very long. Once again, this is a little small test database just so we can show you this process. All right, so there we can see all the backups have cleared off our active jobs list, which means, once again, they went over to the recent jobs tab. I can see my newest transactions in here now. Right, and I'm not sure. I think that was kind of a glitch we were seeing, a little quirkiness seeing why we saw them in there twice. I think it was flipping between when they were active and actually flipping over to successful. We saw them in there twice, but I do only have one complete full for those backups or those assets right there. I thought it was 2, but I think it was a little quirkiness being in there why they were flipping over and looking at it, by the way. But here's our next set of transaction logs. I can see those across those assets as well. And now if I go over to my recovery catalog, right, and I can filter on transactional backup types right away. I really like this for SQL recovery because here's my newest SQL transaction points for each of these databases. You can find them very easily. Once again, different recovery options depending on what type of database. Once again, check the recovery demo for SQL. All right, a couple last things I want to leave you with just to make sure we're really clear on everything here. You know, once again, you could have a simple SQL instance where these SQL databases are running in a virtual machine. You could turn on Application Aware. So make sure if you need to check out the Application Aware for SQL, make sure you take a look at the VMware Backups module. We show Application Aware in the VMware Applications and Backups demo modules, and we talk about it in there. Okay, we show you that in there. It's too hard to show Application Aware for each application in the application. So if you are running these applications in VMware, make sure you once again you check out the VMware Backup and demo and the backup module presentation. Pretty cool. You know, very easy to start seeing the assets that you have protected. Once again, you're going to see some assets down here that you know you're not going to schedule with SQL. These databases are all part of SharePoint once again. When I run backups against my actual SharePoint farm, it will back up these SharePoint SQL objects. I don't need to worry about those. That's why they're not protected. That's why you don't see them in this here, and they will remain false. You might always have stuff that's not protected. Get used to your numbers once again. Your SQL assets are going to be a part of your protected if you're running backups against them. But you may have some SQL that's not going to be protected. You probably always have some SQL over here under not protected. All right, so there's a pretty good overview of the SQL backups through the application agent from Unitrends.